Every now and again in college football, there's a team that has a special year. A year where all the stars seem to align to make the impossible possible. And so far, it seems like it could be BYU's year. Because crazy things are happening all across the college football landscape. Things that haven't happened since 1984. Alabama losing to Vanderbilt, UNLV starting its year 3-0, or SMU, Miami, and Pitt looking like some of the best college football teams in the country. Everything about this college football season has the 1980s written all over it. And it's also been exactly 40 years since BYU's landscape-altering national championship run. Yes, 40 years, and just so happens that BYU has a Jewish quarterback. Coincidence? Maybe, but on top of all of that, BYU is also celebrating 100 years as a football program. And I'm not trying to say that BYU is destined to go to the national championship or even to the playoff, because there is still so much football left to be played. But what I am saying, and what many are saying, is that this team just feels different. And as the season has gone along, this team has shown that it frankly doesn't care about BYU teams in the past and all of the negative stereotypes that go along with it. Like BYU can't win during the day, check. They can't win on the East Coast, check. They can't win against a backup quarterback, check. Or they can't win as a host to a national pregame show, check. This team just doesn't care, and they continue to prove everyone wrong, including some of their more loyal supporters. And it's not that we as BYU fans don't want the Cougars to win every single game they play. It's just that we've been through way too much heartache to dream bigger than what our history allows. Every week online, it seems like us fans come up with some way that this is going to be the letdown week. And I kind of get it. I don't think it's just because fans are superstitious about day games and night games. It's also the fact that in the Big 12, the teams are so even that it doesn't come as a surprise for any team to lose on any given Saturday. And every game remaining on BYU's schedule is very winnable and very losable. But at this point in the season, it's safe to say that when talking about this BYU team specifically, throw all preconceived notions out the window, because this team is here to rewrite the entire script. But there is one more box that needs to be checked in order to catapult this team into the team of destiny conversation. A box that hasn't been checked in almost 2 decades. And that is to beat the Utes in Salt Lake. The Holy War has not been a fun one for BYU fans over the past couple of decades. It's a time littered with heartbreaking losses that cause shivers down the spine of any BYU fan when it's brought up. And even with the win back in 2021 that broke the 9-game losing streak, BYU has a long ways to go to get back to the dominance that were the Lavelle Edwards days, where over the span of 2 decades they had a 19-2 record against the Utes. Because even with that last win back in 2021, the Cougars still only have a 6-14 record against Utah since 2000. And BYU hasn't won in Salt Lake in 18 years, where it took a miraculous final drive by the BYU offense that was capped off by a cross-field, cross-body touchdown from John Beck to a wide-open Johnny Harleen as time expired to get it done. And while Utah has been dominant when it comes to wins and losses since that game, the final box score has never told the whole story. 2008 Salt Lake City. Utah was ranked 7th in the country, undefeated. BYU came in ranked 14 with only 1 loss to TCU. Tensions were high as always before kickoff, and for most of the game it was very close, 24-27 heading into the 4th quarter. But 6 turnovers by BYU's star quarterback Max Hall would turn this game into a blowout. The Utes would go on that year to beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, and the losing streak for the Cougars in Salt Lake City would commence. 2010. BYU had the lead late in the 4th quarter. They had an interception that should have been ruled down by contact, but somehow was ruled a fumble on the field and after video replay. Utah would capitalize off that with a touchdown to take the lead. BYU would get their chance with a game-winning field goal, only to have it blocked. The Utes win. 2012. After a really sloppy game for BYU and giving up a scoop and score in the 3rd quarter, BYU somehow found themselves within 3 points and with the ball. Only problem was it was 4th and 12 on their own 19 and there was only 19 seconds left. But that was when Riley Nelson throws a dime to Cody Hoffman down the sideline. Now with time running out, BYU ran one more play with 4 seconds left on the clock. Riley Nelson throws an incomplete pass as time seemingly expires, and the whole Utah sideline rushes the field thinking the game is over, only to find out that there was still 1 second left on the clock. So they would have to usher everyone off of the field and allow BYU one chance at a 51-yard field goal. And Justin Sorensen's attempt was blocked. Utah wins again. Well, not yet. The Ute fans would rush the field before the play was over, giving Utah a 15-yard penalty and BYU one untimed down. So Justin Sorensen has another shot at a game-tying field goal to send the game to overtime and doinks it off the upright. Utah wins, for real this time. 2016, Taysom Hill to start the game throws a pick six right off the bat. But once again, late in the game, BYU finds themselves within striking distance and with the ball. Taysom Hill marches the offense down the field for a touchdown with 20 seconds left on the clock. It's 19-20 Utes. They decide to go for two and take the game right then, which I don't disagree with. I mean, you're on the road in a hostile environment and you have a chance at one play to win the game. I think you take it. But then they call a quarterback draw, which predictably does not go well. And this play call has gotten a lot of flack over the years, and yes, it probably wasn't the best play call, but of all the players that might have been able to score on that drive, I'd bet my money on Taysom Hill. Nonetheless, Utah wins again. 2018, a young Zach Wilson was leading the Cougars to a 20-0 score at halftime. It was looking like this was finally BYU's year to get it done in Salt Lake. But to start the second half, that all too familiar back-breaking turnover for a touchdown rears its ugly head. And that's what seemed to give Utah the spark they needed to get back into the game. BYU was still up 27-14 in the fourth quarter, but Utah came storming back to take a 1-point lead with about 2 minutes left. After a stop on 4th and 1, BYU would fall short yet again. And that was the last year the Holy War was played in Salt Lake City. Going into this year's Holy War, most correctly predicted that this would be a matchup between one team that was looking to solidify its conference championship campaign and another looking to play spoiler to a perfect season while getting a much needed win towards bowl eligibility and bragging rights. What wasn't predicted was BYU being the championship contender and the Utes trying to play spoiler. Yet here we are, Utah is reeling, trying to find any spark on the offensive end, while BYU on the other hand seems to be clicking on all cylinders on both sides of the ball. To the outside observer, this game should be a no-brainer. BYU wins easily and continues its pursuit for a Big 12 championship. I mean, Utah just lost to Houston, for crying out loud. While all of that is true, we should all know by now that when these two teams play, throw everything out the window and prepare for a knockdown, drag-out fight to the end. And I don't expect this year to be any different. I mean, Utah's in desperation mode, looking to bring its season back from the dead, and what better way to get a win against your in-state rival and continue that wave into bowl eligibility at the end of the year. They still have one of the best defenses in the country that will keep them in any game they play. And the story of this rivalry over the past couple of decades for the Cougars has been back-breaking turnovers that have cost them games year after year. And the turnover battle will no doubt be a major factor in who comes out on top once again. And as great as Jake Retzloff has been for the Cougars this year, his one Achilles heel has always been taking care of the football. But like I said before, every so often in college football, one team is chosen to have a magical run. And it's hard to think that BYU couldn't be that team. They're playing with a growing confidence every single game. They're shattering any negative stereotype of BYU teams past, and they're playing for each other. We've heard over and over again from coaches and players that the big difference between this year's team and last year's team has been the locker room. And you can see it on the field. This team isn't winning because of a Heisman campaign from one specific player. They're winning because of solid team football on both sides of the ball. And maybe, just maybe, there could be some help coming from somewhere else too. I have no idea how this year's Holy War is going to play out, but with a win this week, BYU could not only check off that last box of beating the Utes in Salt Lake, but also solidify their spot as this year's college football team of destiny. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.